Maine rental laws play an important role in making sure that landlord-tenant relationships remain fair to both sides. From rules that govern how evictions should be handled to when a security deposit must be returned, understanding these rental laws will help ensure that the tenancy runs smoothly without conflict or, worse yet, costly litigation that could have been avoided in the first place. In this video, we'll give you an overview of what the state law says about lease agreements, required disclosures, security deposits, and evictions. eForms, the largest online database of fillable legal forms. Check out the link below to access a fillable lease agreement template. Let's first go over the basics. What is a lease agreement? A lease agreement is a rental contract between a landlord and a tenant. Depending on the type of agreement, whether it's a month-to-month lease, a standard agreement, or rent-to-own, both the landlord and the tenant are bound to the specific terms regarding the length of the lease, termination, and more. Because a lease agreement is legally binding once it's signed, breaking the contract can result in hefty fines or even legal action. Next, let's take a look at required disclosures. In Maine, there are a total of 8 disclosures that the landlord must provide to the tenant. Let's review them one by one. Bed bug infestation disclosure. The landlord must inform the tenant if the rental unit or an adjacent unit is being treated for bed bugs. Electricity to common areas. Unless the tenant agrees to it, the landlord is legally not allowed to bill the tenant for electricity, heat, or any utility or service for common areas in the building. Security deposit location. The landlord is legally required to disclose the bank and account number where the security deposit is being held. Smoking policy. The landlord must disclose whether smoking is allowed on the property or outright prohibited. Energy efficiency disclosure. The landlord must provide a disclosure about the energy efficiency of the building's water system, heater, insulation, appliances, and more. Radon disclosure. The landlord is required to check the property for the existence of radon every 10 years and provide the tenant with a disclosure. Lead-based paint disclosure. Under federal law, the landlord must provide this disclosure if the residence was built before 1978. And lastly, rental housing rights disclosure. This one only applies to the city of Portland. In this jurisdiction, the landlord must provide this one-page document to the tenant informing them of their rights as a renter prior to moving in. Now, let's look at the security deposit laws. In Maine, the maximum security deposit that can be requested is equivalent to 2 months' rent. As for returning the security deposit, the landlord must send the funds back to the tenant within 30 days if it is a fixed lease and 21 days if it's a month-to-month rental agreement. Finally, let's cover Maine's eviction laws. In Maine, a landlord may evict a tenant under the following requirements. Non-payment of rent. If the tenant is late on rent, the landlord can issue a 7-day notice to quit. This means the tenant has 7 days to pay the amount in full or move out. Non-compliance. If the tenant breaks any portion of the lease other than late rent, the landlord can issue a 7-day notice to quit. This gives the tenant 7 days to fix the violation or be evicted. Termination. If the landlord wants to terminate a month-to-month lease for reasons other than non-payment or non-compliance, they must provide 30 days notice to the tenants. Want to learn more about Maine rental laws? Visit the link in the video description for a comprehensive breakdown on all things related to lease agreements, evictions, and more.